Cameron Orty, who is our manager of the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct and all of the museums and Athenaeums across the Shire. He's been appointed to the National Council of the Australian Museums and Galleries Association, which is a great honour for Cameron, and congratulations to him. And it's really great for Indigo Shire to be represented at that level. So, yeah, that's a fantastic achievement. And I know that Councillor Cratcher, you wanted to mention something tonight?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Look, I had the privilege of attending the Burrong Community Centre last Saturday to celebrate the completion of their history project entitled Capturing History, Burrong Stories Remembered. A research team was formed, and with some funding and investigation with local identities and historians, these interpretive panels were constructed and hung at the Burrong Community Centre. A crowd of former residents and local identities enjoyed the afternoon, and I'd like to congratulate that research team and the people of Burrong for a wonderful and very informative day we had out there at Burrong. Thank you.
Thank you, and good on you, Burrong. That sounds fantastic. I've also got, I think, Councillor Shepherd, you wanted to mention the Rutherglen Red Cross people.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge, I know it's been acknowledged in the local Facebook pages and around.
You might have to turn your camera off, Councillor.
Community, but from a council perspective, I just wanted to thank the, for 110 years, the Rutherglen Red Cross has been active in Rutherglen, and what a great job they've done supporting the community through fire, flood, and all the other things that they've done. And they're going to be a great loss, I think, to the community. I think they've retired, really. And I know what's going to be missed the most is their cake making abilities. So but that's me being light. Of course, their great humanitarian work has been very supported more than just Rutherglen, the whole. So thank you very much to those great women who've been involved.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah. And we also wanted a special mention for one of our longest serving staff members. And I think Councillor Gaffney, you wanted to raise this tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Don Pope, he seems to have been around forever. He came over from the United Shire of Beechworth and has been with Indigo Shire. He's always been the go-to person. If ever you weren't sure about a block of land who it belonged to, whether it was Dwelp or Crown Land or Indigo Shire Council, he knew from the top of his head. An excellent engineer and project manager, and he'll be surely missed, I'm sure, CEO.
And Councillor Goldsworthy, you want to add something?
Yeah, I do. Don's been around for a very long time, I'd say the early 70s. I had the good fortune to go through school with 4 of his children. So, and all the way through with Melissa from prep through to year 12. And so he has been an absolute stalwart, and he's quite religious as well, and he's been a mainstay for the local church as well. So, yeah, he'll be certainly missed from an Indigo Shire perspective, but I'm sure he'll enjoy getting around his grandchildren now a little bit more often.
Yeah. And I think, CEO, did you want to add something to just acknowledging Don?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just very quickly, yeah, Don did start with us actually 50 years ago.
Wow.
So he started in 1970. So he started back then as a Shire engineer until from 1970 to 1995, so 25 years. Then he went to the dark side, went over to the Water Authority, so the Kiwi Water Authority for a while, which later became North East Water. And he returned to us later on in around 2004 or so. So started with Indigo Way, then later Indigo Shire Council. So he's been with us since 50 years ago, but all up 40 years with employment with Indigo Council. So he's obviously a stalwart, had a role to play in many, many things around the place that have been built. It's got Don's name on it. And, you know, we'll be farewelling him tomorrow with the morning tea at the office. But he's, I won't say an elder person, he's a statesman. He's a statesman-looking type person and just carries himself so beautifully. And I'm sure he'll be missed by his many, many colleagues over many, many, many years. So farewell to Don tomorrow.
Yes, so best wishes to you, Don, from Council. and you will be a huge loss for us. And thank you for your fantastic support over the years and informing us whenever and however you can. You've been really wonderful. So good luck in your retirement, a very well-earned retirement. Okay, so the next is condolences, and I do want to take the opportunity tonight to pay our respects to Jerry Smith, who died several weeks ago after a long battle with cancer. Jerry was CEO for 3 years in Indigo Shire, and from 2017 through to 2019, I think, if I've got the dates right, and made an enormous contribution. So I know that many of the staff that worked with Jerry have been very, very sad at his passing, as have many in the community who formed strong friendships with he and Dimity. So he leaves a great legacy in Indigo Shire. Probably most noted is the Beechworth to Yakunda Osborne's Flat rail trail, which he advocated so strongly for, and it was the biggest grant that we'd ever had at that stage in Indigo Shire for something that is really changing the face of our tourism offering and growing on what's already a wonderful place to visit. It's offering a whole other thing to the people that come and visit us, as well as people that live here, of course. And so it is a great legacy, and it is setting us up very well for the future. So Jerry, and for those of us that worked with Jerry when he was our CEO, I mean, he was indeed a man of integrity and a man of huge commitment to Indigo Shire. He ended up staying here when his wife got a job in Melbourne. He stayed here and was prepared to continue working for us for quite a long time, until he then went to local government Victoria, where I know he advocated very strongly for rural councils in a way that a lot of bureaucrats in Melbourne just don't get. So he's made a huge contribution. And for those of us that attended his memorial service on Friday, and for those that watched it, it was a beautiful tribute to Jerry from his family. So I just want to add our voice, and I would ask that we send a letter under seal to Dimity to express our condolence. So do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Horn, those in favour? Thank you, councillors. So we'll send that letter to his wife, Dimity. All right. So now we're moving to confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. So the recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 18th of May 2021 and the additional council meeting held on the 15th of June 2021, as published on the council's website, be confirmed. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Price and seconded Councillor Goldsworthy. Do you wish to speak to it, councillor? Anyone wish to speak to this motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. So the next recommendation is that we suspend standing orders to allow open forum to move forward. Open forum to be moved to this agenda item, and that I'll read the questions at my discretion to open forum on behalf of the questioner, without the requirement that that questioner or their representative be present at the meeting. So we do have a number of items tonight. The first one was from Robin McLeish. And so Robin,
we didn't suspend standing orders, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, CEO. Do I have someone to move that we suspend the standing orders? Thank you, Councillor Price. Seconded, Councillor Croucher. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour? Motion carried. All right, thank you. So the questions from Robin McLeish, there are two questions here. Robin says, at the last council meeting, a councillor sought confirmation of the revenue, expenses and variances for the Rutherglen and Beechworth visitor centres. The responsible staff member was not able to provide that information, and I said that it would be included in the final document. Has the information been provided in the revised budget document? So the information has been provided, not in the budget document because we don't go down to that level in the budget document of line items, but it is out there on the public agenda for this meeting, and I'm quite happy to read that out now. So it was Councillor Gaffney that asked, why have expenses for the Beechworth VIC risen from 273 to 379,000? Why have Chilton VIC expenses stayed the same in comparison? And why has the Rutherglen VIC revenue increased but net cost has not reduced by a similar amount? So Mark Florence, Director of Community and Economic Development, responded, the Beechworth VIC 2021 budget reflects an increase of approximately 100,000 on the adopted 2021 budget due to the effect of the COVID-19 adjustment that had been made to the previous budget. When this adjustment is added back, so to bring it back to the level it had normally been, a fair comparison shows that an approximate 14,000 favourability in the 2021-22 Beechworth VIC budget was there. The Chilton VIC is budgeted to receive the same level of financial support plus website marketing and social media support, and the ACT-VIC budget reflects the higher revenue generation experienced in 2020-21 and the co-location, the post office efficiencies, and the Rutherglen VIC budget reflects the improved revenue generation under council management, and that the 21-22 is the first full year budget. The 2021 was only 10 months under council management. So I hope that explains it, and Robin, all of that is set out in the council agenda for you to see and for the public to see. The second question was, will council set up a monthly report on tenancy confirmations for the Beechworth and Chilton rail sheds, as was the case with the monthly Stanley water reports? I might hand that one to the CEO, unless you want to put that to someone else.
Madam Mayor, I think I don't propose that we were bringing a monthly report on that particular item. It's fairly operational. I mean, certainly there's interest in the rail sheds, and obviously, you know, when we're able to secure a tenant, we'll all know that at the time. We'll be having an EOI process up soon, and hopefully we'll get someone there shortly. But I don't see any real utility in providing a monthly report to council on that, unless council laws asked me to do that, but I don't propose to put that on the agenda from my perspective.
Okay, but as the situation evolves, we will make that public and make sure people know what's happening.
The situation is that there's not a tent there at the moment, but when there is one, that will go through council. So you'll know that there isn't one until there is one, then you'll know about that because you'll vote for that. All
right, thank you. The next one is from Alan Davis. Alan has written quite an introduction, which I'm not going to read through because really this is just about questions coming to council, not the story behind it necessarily. So the question is, why has council taken the Shire Road register off the website? I was told to look up the map on the Shire map. It's hard to see and very hard to find and compare the roads. So I'm going to ask Paul McLaughlin, who's our Acting Director for Infrastructure. Paul, can you shed any light on Alan's issue there?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I checked the website today and searched for road register in the searching tool, and it's there. It's available online. It's been there, as far as I know, for some time.
Okay, so maybe Alan, if you're listening, if you're having any issues, ring our customer service people and see if they can help you with logging on. And yeah, hopefully it's working better for you now. Question 2, it's been brought to my attention that under a previous mayor years ago, the funding for Woolshed Road was received and spent on other roads, and to cover the council Woolshed Road was marked as sealed. Is this so? I think the answer is no, it's not so, but I'll just check in with Acting Director Paul McLaughlin.
Thanks again. I can confirm, well, I can't confirm whether or not at some point in the past there was a budget allocated and spent elsewhere. It certainly hasn't happened in at least the last 5 years. With the second part of that, the segments of the road which are classified as sealed and unsealed are all correct in our asset system. So we're not presenting roads as being sealed when they're not sealed.
Okay, so Alan, if you do have an example of that, let us know. And my understanding is that the person that you spoke to was Don Chambers, and of course Don's no longer with us to be able to clarify whether he gave you what that information was that he told you, but we have asked whether it's the case, and so far certainly in our current information. There's no evidence of that. So again, if you know some more about that, let us know. So that's from Alan, thank you. And the next one is 7.3, order of business. So this is to do with the fact that we are dealing with our council plan and budget tonight, which of course are very important documents for this term of council. So the recommendation to make this work in a way that makes some sense.
So, Madam Mayor, sorry, we need to resume standing orders, sorry.
Oh, sorry, can I resume standing orders? Thank you. Do I have someone to resume standing orders? Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Second, Councillor Horn. All those in favour? Anyone against? No, good, thank you. So to make this work, I'm just explaining a little bit here. We have to make sure that the submissions come in that we saw are actually, noted, and we had many submissions. So before I go any further, I do want to really thank the community for the amazing engagement that we had from you. So both for the council plan and the budget, really great to see such engagement. So we need to consider the submissions. We then need to adopt or put to council whether we adopt the community vision and the council plan. And we need to do that before we consider the budget, because the budget is driven by the council plan. So it doesn't make sense to approve one before the other. So we have to change the agenda around. I hope that makes some sense. So to do that, I need to the recommendation is that items 13.1, consideration of submissions to the community vision and council plan 2021 to 25, and 13.2, adoption of the council vision and council plan, be considered before item 10.2, which is consideration of the 21-22 budget submissions. Do I have someone to move this? Councillor Price, seconded Councillor Shepherd. And do you need to speak to it, anybody? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. So I can now put things in the right order. There's also an additional item. This is late business. The CEO is requesting that the following item be admitted as an item of late business under Governance Rule 46. This is the tender for Part A of the Yakandanda Connectivity Project. It closed on the 22nd of June 2021. Project officers are currently assessing and evaluating the tender submissions, which are expected to be completed, and an award recommendation prepared by Friday the 2nd of July. So this recommendation is to allow the CEO to authorise that expenditure as it goes slightly over his delegation, and to not hold things up any longer than we need to on getting things going. So the recommendation is that the item authorisation for expenditure Yakandanda Connectivity Project be admitted to the council meeting agenda as late business in accordance with Governance Rule 46, and that the item be considered prior to item 12.1 in the agenda. So do I have someone to move that? Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Goldsworthy seconding. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. All right, so now I've got to work out where everything is. Petitions. We don't have any petitions for this meeting. So I'm going to go to 10.1. We mentioned this earlier when Councillor Shepherd declared a conflict of interest. So Councillor Shepherd, we'll put you into the waiting room and we'll get you back at the end of this item. Thank you. And I think the CEO is going to introduce this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Wait a minute, we've still got Councillor Shepherd in the room.
Yes, this will just take me a second.
That's okay. Okay.
Madam Mayor, it's, I'll just confirm this. I need to just double check that we have Councillor Shepherd out.
No,
He's still here.
I didn't think so.
Clear.
So just bear with me for a second. I need to just manage this.
I can just go down the other end of the house if you like.
You could put earplugs in.
I mean, if it's easier.
Let's wait. We'll do it properly.
Bear with me.
I think under Zoom conditions, we have to guarantee that you're not listening through the kitchen door. Not that I think you would. All right. So for those watching, sorry, this is just part of the delights of Zoom, and we're just waiting for Director Pinkerton to move Councillor Shepherd into a breakout room because she has a conflict for this particular item. We're obviously having a bit of trouble with the breakout rooms tonight, are we?
Councillor is actually allowed to listen, but not influence.
Oh, okay.
She's free to go away and watch the live stream.
We're now right to go. Sorry for that delay.
Right. All righty. So go, CEO Areno.
Madam Mayor, so this particular item allows a situation where an individual council has a conflict on matters related to council plan and budgets to be able to pull out those items in which that person has a conflict, and then we can vote on those, and then they can return to vote on substantive documents. In this case, there's two documents. There's a council plan and council vision, as well as the budget, and they're addressed later in the agenda. So 13.1 and 10.2 both address these. We did have a situation though with this item that we inadvertently didn't attach the recommended officer comments for the council plan item. So even though the submission in question for the council plan, which was in relation to, was from Indigo Power, the submission was in the attachments. We didn't include in the report an officer recommendation. So we like to table the officer recommendation. Now that table has been circulated to councillors prior to this meeting, so you have that in your hand, but for purpose of the meeting, we'll table those tonight and they'll appear in the minutes. Basically, the officer recommendation for the particular item, the Indigo Power submission on electric vehicles. Our proposed action from officers is that the current draft council plan under action item 4.2.3, we propose to strengthen council's commitment to partnering with others to help establish an EV, electric vehicle charging network. So we propose that item be tweaked with those words.
Yep.
Now, separately, while we're at it, there are some budget items to which councillor also has a conflict, which he's already declared. The officer comments were in the papers, but they were sort of buried back in amongst item. That would be item 10.2. Mm-hmm. So just so that they're all in the same place and they're all attached to this item 10.1, we're also tabling a table which pulls out the items from the budget for which the council has a conflict and brings them forward into this item as well. So that's separately been tabled as well. So they're just a repeat of what's already in there. You've already seen them, so we didn't need to circulate that separately. So we're tabling those two documents. Therefore, we're proposing that the recommendation be tweaked slightly, just to accept, first of all, that the officer comments relating to submission 26 from the council plan and submissions 11, 12, 13, 19 and 21 to the budget be tabled. So there's the documents there. We're asking that be tabled. Then we're rewording the recommendation, which is basically all the same, but rather than referring to attachments, we're referring to the tabled version. Now, if you like, I can read them out very quickly. That council with regard.
Okay, we've all got it. I don't think.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so there's a revised recommendation which is tweaked slightly. Jane will have that version there, but basically where it says attachments, we're replacing it with the word tabled documents. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry for that confusion.
That's okay. So let's move through it so we can get on with getting these documents to be considered. So the council, with regard to the community vision and council plan, considers and notes the tabled council plan and 10-year community vision submissions and offers responses, endorses them, makes the recommended changes to the council plan and community vision as a result of submissions, and directs council staff to respond to each submitter. And the same for the budget. We consider the attached budget submissions, endorse the endorse the attached recommendations in relation to them, makes the recommended changes to the budget as a result of these submissions, and directs council staff to respond on this. Do I have someone to move that? Come on, after all that, someone's got to move it. Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Goldsworthy? No. Councillor Price, do you? All right, all those in favour?
Is that 13.1 or 10.1?
No, 10.1. This is the one that Councillor Shepherd's got a conflict on. So we're just looking at it. We're accepting the submissions. Okay. All those in favour? Done. Thank you, councillors. All right. So then 10 point.
Councillor, back to the room.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Can we have Councillor Shepherd back in the room? And there she is. Hello. All right, so now we're moving to item 13.1, which has been brought forward. This is the consideration of the council plan and community vision submissions. So the recommendation is that council considers and notes the attached council plan and 10-year community vision submissions and officer responses, endorses the attached recommendations in relation to each of these submissions, makes the recommended changes to the council plan and community vision documents as a result, and directs council staff to respond to each submitter with a copy of this report and attached summary of officer recommendations and the council resolution. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Shepherd, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Croucher. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Shepherd?
I would like to speak to it. Tell me how my internet's going. I'm on my third different one. Is it?
Yeah, probably
okay?
Camera off.
Great,
probably camera off is better. You're a bit fuzzy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we're all aware, this has really already been to council, and we've endorsed it, and it went back out to the community for them to have a look at it. And a total of 28 submissions were received, and they're attached. And one submitter spoke at the special meeting we had on Tuesday, the 15th of June. And we've been given specific instructions to say how fantastic it is that so many community members have had input before, during this council plan drawing up, and also now at this stage when they've been able to put in submissions. So a specific request for the reinstatement of Stanley Township was certainly come across very, very loud and clear. So that's been added in under theme 2, livability, to consider opportunity to create a township planning zone in Stanley. So that's recommended that it be passed tonight. And many submissions really were just telling us what they would like to have happen, but not in a council plan way. A number of submitters suggested strengthening the language in some sections, and that's been done. There are also suggestions for council to advocate the government and external agencies on specific issues, and these are included as well. So I think it's a very strong council plan, and I'm really excited about the process, really, the fact that so many people have had the opportunity to have an input, and over 200 people really in all the different ways that they've been engaged. And thank you to Mel for the great work that she's done in producing this. Okay, thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher as the seconder.
Yeah, well, look, I'd just like to endorse everything that Councillor Shepherd has said, but because it has been a long process, but it's certainly been a worthwhile one as far as I'm concerned, with the input coming from a number of different directions, like the public, the key stakeholders, staff, councillors and community. And I'd also like to congratulate Mel and her team for the work that they have done in collating the council plan and the community vision.
Thank you. Okay, so anyone else wish to speak to the consideration of the submissions? Councillor Price and Councillor Gaffney. Councillor Price first.
More of the same, just congratulations. But particularly, I think we've already forgotten that our original plan for our consultation had to be amended, COVID, like there's just been so many different constraints on this version. And in making this council plan, the state government said deliberative engagement. And so we had that on one hand and COVID on the other, which made it really difficult. And to still have this level of interaction is just a real credit to our staff. As Mel always says, it's the team, but I think that it's really under her leadership. So congratulations to her.
Absolutely. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Oh, Councillor Gaffney.
I know, Madam Mayor, that there's some people from Stanley watching tonight, and I'd just like to point out to them that on page 22 of the plan, action 2.1.8, which says, Council consider opportunities to create a township planning zone in Stanley.
Yeah, that's right. I think Councillor Shepherd mentioned that as well. So Stanley, we heard you loud and clear. And I would like to just reiterate that we were overwhelmed with the number of submissions in a good way. Just amazed at the work and effort that people put in, and thank you so much. We also know that you may not all have got everything you want because we can't possibly deliver everything everyone wants, but you were heard and taken into account. And what happens this year is not necessarily what will happen over the rest of the term as well. So just to put that in perspective, but this council plan is the guideline for us for the next 4 years, and the vision is for the next 10 years. So some of us won't be here then, but yeah, we're very, very pleased to have such great council input. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? And that's a full load. Thank you. Thanks, councillors. So now we come to actually adopting the 10-year council vision and council plan. So we've talked about the submissions. As I said at the beginning, there's a bit of a process here, so I won't go over it again. The recommendation is that council, having given public notice in accordance with its community engagement strategy and having received and considered submissions, adopts the community vision and adopts the council plan 21-25, and the Chief Executive Officer or delegate gives public notice of this decision to adopt the community vision and council plan 2021-25. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yes. So to reiterate what's already been mentioned, there's significant community input with over 250 submissions in developing this plan. It focuses on 5 key areas of communities: livability, prosperity, environment, and accountability. You'll find in that a lot of work has been laid out for the council over the next 4 years. It will be quite an achievement if we can get everything done that's in there. But it's a great aspiration. Hopefully it can be achieved in a timely manner and within budget.
Councillor Shepherd.
Only to say that it's lovely to be able to say that this is our council plan, and I think we can consider that the communities, the whole of Indigo Shire. It's not just a few people have put this together. So there's a sense of ownership around it. So I think we can go ahead now and do some of the actions that the community are expecting of us.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
Just a comment to say, it's always such a sprawling process. It's enormous, and the feedback that you get is just so much that it can be really hard to bring it all together. But right from the outset, I've been really confident that I've got complete line of sight of everything that's been contributed by the community and by councillors and by staff. And again, that's just a credit to the staff that pulled it together, because that you can't guarantee that, or it's difficult to guarantee, and I'm really confident in that, and I hope that people can see their feedback reflected in the council plan.
Thanks, councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour of adopting the council plan and the vision? And that's all the councillors. Thank you, and a huge thanks to Mel and Mel, the two Mels who did this enormous amount of work, and I know the champagne corks are popping as we voted for that one. Okay, so now is 10.2, consideration of the budget submissions. So the recommendation, and again, just to be clear for people, we had all these different processes running at once. We had the council plan, council vision, and the budget all needing to be done by this meeting, basically. So huge amount of work and effort, again, from the staff. And in this case, particularly our finance officer, Phil Garoni, and his team, and Director Greg Pinkerton. So again, just a massive effort. And I know all the directors and staff had input. So then the community commented. So the recommendation is that Council considers and notes the attached budget submissions and officer responses, endorses the attached recommendations in relation to each of the 21-22 budget submissions, makes the recommended changes to the budget as a result of those submissions, and directs the council staff to respond to each submitter with a copy of this report and attached summary of the officer recommendations and the council resolution. Do I have someone to move that? Submissions. Thanks, Councillor Croucher. Seconded, Councillor Goldsworthy. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, well, I won't say anything much more about it, but it is consideration, and I think we've gone through the right process and everything that's gone on very, very well. It reads very well as far as I'm concerned. I'd just like to pass this recommendation as is read.
Thank you. And Councillor Goldsworthy.
I support Councillor Croucher's comments.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the recommendation that we accept the submissions on this document? Councillor Gaffney.
I note that there were 31 submissions and I haven't counted them up, but I'd say 95% of them would have been no change to budget. A lot of people say, have they wasted their time? I suppose time will tell.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to the budget? Sorry, the submissions. Accepting the submissions for the budget. Councillor Shepherd.
I was very much taken by the Stanley two submissions for asking for funding, and one for the Spring Ditch and one for the Walking Stanley Plateau. Both of them, the community has done an amazing job to get them to where they are at the moment. And I think it's great that I love to support when community is already done most of the work. So the community grants are the area that I've been told would be the best place for them to seek funding. So I'm just suggesting that that their two submissions perhaps be already seen as part of the July submissions for the community grants, and that our officer that works in that area could contact them and get that into the submissions well, it's nearly July now. So. And just wanted to say I thought they were great submissions.
Thanks, Councillor, and that's good advice. We'll make sure, CEO, can you make sure that's followed up, that they're contacted to assist them to put in? Yeah, great. All right, anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? And that's 7 hands. Thank you, councillors. So the next one is the big one. This is the adoption of the council budget for 21-22. So the recommendation is that council, having given public notice in accordance with the Local Government Act and having received and considered submissions, adopts the attached budget, including the budgeted financial statements as defined by the local government reporting regulations for 2021-22. There are then pages that list all the different fees and charges, including rates, waste management charges, municipal charge, payment options, etc., etc. I won't read them all out. They're all there. Obviously, this is a public document, totally there transparently for everyone to see. So I'm going to put the recommendation that we adopt the budget. Do I have someone to move that? I have Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yep. This is a great budget. $16.5 million worth of capital works programs. Provided the completion rate is up over 90%, I'll be happy at the end of it. Things like the Chilton Community Hub, an arts strategy, Rutherglen placemaking, our footpaths, drainage, Caravan Park Master Plan. There's so much in this, and it's exciting for the community. It's us trying to deliver on what's in the council plan. And yeah, the income from it, the expenditure, we're up over the high $30 million. So this is really a significant budget, and it's probably the largest capital works program this Shire has seen so far. So absolutely, we should support it and thank the staff for their input, because we've had significant input from the community to develop it. It takes Bill Garoni a significant amount of time to actually put all the figures together, and for every little change to it, every FAG grant that gets paid early or any of those changes, he's got to make alterations. For a 1.5% increase in rates, we're delivering a lot to the community. So well done to the CEO, his staff and the community, and I support this budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shepherd, is the seconder. Do you wish to speak?
Can I reserve my right for the moment?
You can. Any other councillor wish to speak? I think Councillor Gaffney does, and then Councillor Croucher.
I certainly have concerns about the budget. Back when we passed, or council passed, the draft budget, I spoke about footpaths and cycleways, which were lumped into the infrastructure budget together. And there was 129,000 for footpaths and 3.61 million for cycleways. Under that, there was another line that said road safety innovations, $914,000. There were no projects mentioned. There were submissions to the budget. I think the majority of those were concerns about footpaths and the amount of money spent on cycleways. So when we read the actual budget, the wording has changed from road safety innovations to road-cycle safety program. So does that mean that the 914,000 goes to cycleways? If you read the officer's comments in regard to a submission regarding the lack of money for footpaths and the exorbitant amount for the sort of cycleways, the Director Infrastructure says the money will largely be associated with the Beechworth to Yakandanda Rail Trail project. I've said before that this project is an absolute money pit. And does this mean that we're going to spend another 900,000 on this project, state government project? I know that the money came from grants from the federal and state government. I'm sure the federal government won't be too keen, seeing that from another program we put $302,000 into that project. It just seems that that footpaths aren't seen as important safety measures, but cycling on a rail trail is.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to the budget? Sorry, Councillor Croucher, you were first, then Councillor.
Yeah, look, I'll be short and sweet. I'm no finance budgeting guru, but I know enough to know that this has been a very enormous process, in fact, a very prescriptive process, and I've followed it right from the changes and bits and pieces as well. And I thought it was a great effort by the team, and I'd like to congratulate them. For somebody like me who can read this budget, it's something very, very well done. Congratulations to the team.
Councillor. And Councillor Horn. You're on mute, Councillor.
Yes, I have quite a bit I'd like to say about this budget.
Okay, we've got 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a metaphysical saying that if you don't listen to the whispers, you hear a scream. If you don't deal with a puddle, you're faced with an ocean. And I think this is exactly where we are, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. There are people in the water and sadly some on the ocean floor. We're lucky though, because upwards of 16,500 people have made it to the lifeboats. They are looking for us to throw them a lifeline and lead them to dry land. They need us to present them with plans for rebuilding the economies, the capacity and the resilience that's needed to future-proof and protect homes, lives and businesses across the entire Shire. It appears to me that over the last 4.5 years, your level of comfort with the projects that are supported in this budget have developed into tunnel vision when it comes to cycle tourism. And now, in the light of the huge COVID iceberg that's overshadowing every level of our lives, it is crucial that we reassess our plans through the lens of the prevailing conditions, in the certainty of cost blowouts and their appropriateness to other pressing needs. I'm far from convinced that the Beechworth Epic Mountain Bike Track project will strengthen our economy or comfort those who would rather such monies be invested in better drainage, roads and footpaths. I don't believe that a lycra and latte-led recovery is what our communities either need or want in such uncertain times. In fact, I think it will further polarise our communities. This budget isn't about just balancing numbers. It's about lives and livelihoods, and it's about the legacy we leave for those who come after us. As clearly demonstrated by Karen Van Hoosen from Indigo Valley, there is a serious lack of planning for the meeting the challenges of climate change. I'm not certain that also that we have been able to conform to the requirements outlined in our new governance to hold meaningful, relevant and timely conversations with our community members. How many of our residents and ratepayers would be aware that to date, $750,000 has been taken from our rateable income to pay for the trees that were cut down to create the Beechworth Yakandana cycle track?
You've got 30 seconds,
5 times, pardon?
Just to let you know, 30 seconds left, Councillor.
Thank you. More than 5 times as many groups and individuals took the time to respond to this budget. No doubt they will be disappointed by the lack of support shown for their theme of better drainage and footpaths. There are 31 submissions, actually representing the voices and views of more than 500 people, and echo the sentiments of Barnawatha's strongest advocate, Nerida Kerr, that there's no point in talking to the Shire because we are not listening. We never listen. Do these whispers need to become screams before we hear their messages?
Thanks, Councillor. That's your time allocation. Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Price.
Can I just ask though, is there any amendment being put or any change being proposed to the budget, or are these all just comments?
They're comments.
Okay. Again, I think this has been a really strong budget process that we've been a part of alongside the community. I'm pleased to see the level of interaction that we've had, given that Council's budget probably isn't the thing at the front of people's mind at the moment. There's so much more going on. So I'm really pleased to see the amount of interaction we've had. I also hope that we're building confidence in the community, that we have processes in place that mean that the priorities that should be at or near the top are there, because certainly that's what we're always advocating for as councillors is better processes, so that for every interaction that a constituent has with us over the course of the year, not just at budget time, we're able to have those strategies for different sorts of infrastructure in place so that they can be built straight into the budget. I'm really pleased to see, as Councillor Goldsworthy said, such a big capital works spend, and I really think that that's we've really leveraged well off that. We've done a great job to be so successful in acquiring all of that funding, and I think that it will be really beneficial to us as we move into this next stage, after as we're hoping to be post-COVID. And overall, I'd just like to say, I think that this process, not just for the community, but for us as councillors, the staff have made themselves available and willing to answer questions and really help us to engage with the material. And I think that's so important because, as Councillor Croucher has said, and other councillors as well, we all come to it with different levels of understanding, and it makes the material really accessible. And I think that they would provide that same, they'd happily answer the same questions from the community. So congratulations to Greg and Phil on a great budget.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd, you reserved your right. Do you wish to speak?
I did, but I just to say that I'm in agreement that watching it and being part of this process makes me feel confident in being able to second and vote for this budget, because we have had since last year the opportunity to ask any question we want, to discuss amongst us or with the community any issue that they may have had. So it's really been a very transparent and open process, and this is the budget that we have before us now through, I think, good process. So and I mean, I'm sure it will improve, and there's things we've learnt from this process. And I mean, COVID got in the way again of really engaging completely with the community face to face. But I think we're improving each time that we've done a budget in how we approach the community and how they have an input. So congratulations to the staff, congratulations to the community and to our councillors for their input.
Thank you. Councillor Goldsworthy, do you wish to sum up?
Look, it's hard because I do want to address some of the concerns that were raised by two of the councillors.
Well, you've got
I look at the footpaths. We've got $582,000. We've all been sent an email that outlines that Beechworth footpath renewal and risk reduction, $40,000. Footpath network expansion around Ford Street and Church Street, that's $75,000. Safety improvements in Rutherglen, $40,000. Church Street in Yackandandah, $35,000. Connor Street in Chilton, $87,000. Murray Street, Rutherglen, $25,000. Yackandandah Rail.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
There is no point of order. There is
no point of order. What on what grounds, Councillor?
Section 68A8, and the point of order is that these aren't in the current 21-22 budget. They're part of the 2020-2021 budget. So I thought that we were talking about the current budget, and that is not. And
Councillor, tell me what point of order you're making it on. 68 point what?
The motion is about the current 21-22 budget.
Yeah.
Councillor Goldsworthy, in the budget it says $129,000, and it's mentioned again on page 17 under initiatives. Councillor Goldsworthy is going back to the. You've asked me a question, Madam Mayor. Councillor Goldsworthy is going.
What is the point of order based on? What regulation is it based on? It's the only way I can rule on it.
Well,
you have to tell me what it is.
If you look at 68A1, it's the same. What's in last year's budget is not relevant to this year's budget, surely. Or should we go back over? If I'd known we were going to go back.
Thank you. I get your point. Can I clarify, Councillor Goldsworthy, are you talking about last year's budget? I don't have the figures in front of me.
So there are components of it that do comply with this year's budget, because we're talking about the footpaths through Yackandandah and all those other works.
So based on relevance, can you stick to this year's budget?
Yep, I am.
Okay, you are. Councillor Gaffney's saying you're not.
Definitely not. He's talking about $580,000 or something, is he?
So all those works are yet to be completed.
In the current budget, Shire-wide footpath upgrade program, $129,000. So
I'm just going to check in with the CEO on this, just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. CEO, those figures that Councillor Goldsworthy had were, I think, provided by you, Acting Director McLaughlin. So just to be clear, are you talking about works that are to be completed in this year's budget? Is that where we're up to?
I'm guessing, I can't speak for Councillor Goldsworthy, I'm guessing that there may be some projects that were
Sounds good to me.
Acting Director Paul McLaughlin, given that you provided those figures, is that correct?
So those are projects that were adopted under the Local Roads Community Infrastructure Grant, but were deferred into the 21-22 budget.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering that. All right, so I'm going to go back to you, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yeah, so there is significant input in relation to that. The mention of $750,000 for biodiversity offsets for trees. A lot of that is actually going for grassland as well. So it's not just the trees that will be impacted. And we all know and are aware that the grant that was given to us in relation to Lake Sample, the walking path, you know, there's something to be said about the state government making good on the cost to the Indigo Shire. So it was a very generous offer for them. So what I'm saying is that this is a really good budget for everybody. It deals with multiple aspects of our tourism, our industry offering, and I think we can all be comfortable with the outcome for this budget.
All right, thanks, Councillor. All right, so I'm going to put the vote now. All those in favour of this year's budget? And against? All right, so those in favour are, hands up again, Councillor Shepherd, Price, Croucher, Goldsworthy, O'Connor. And against? Councillor Gaffney, Councillor Horn. So have you got those recorded? Jane, thank you very much. All right, so the budget is passed. 10.4, and again, I will just say a huge thanks to the staff, whatever people might think of the budget, the work that Phil Groney, Greg, the CEO, all of the senior staff, the directors, Mark and Ian, and their managers. I know you've all had huge input into this, as well as the community. And I have to say the councillors have spent many, many hours and sessions and discussions on this. So it certainly wasn't something that didn't have a lot of scrutiny. And I think the majority of us feel that it is an excellent budget and we're proud of it. 10.4, procurement policy. So the recommendation is that council adopts the attached procurement policy 2021. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Shepherd, do I have a seconder? Councillor Croucher. Councillor Shepherd, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, this came to us at the last council meeting, and we spoke about the changes that have been that have gone to this one. They're all listed here. Probably the top one is to additional wording to reflect the council's declaration of a climate emergency and highlight the role that sustainable procurement has in achieving council sustainability goals. That's the top one. Then and then the waiting for tenders, the reduction of the advertising threshold, and all these have gone out to the community. We haven't had any response in a submission, so it's back to us again for us to vote on. This will only last for 6 months, and we will have another one to vote on. So if people feel that they have only just noted that it's here and gosh, I'd like to have a bit of a look at that procurement policy and change something, you've got 6 months to look at it, and then we'll do a new one. So thank you very much for the work that's gone into that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Croucher.
It's quite evident that the policy has been overhauled with a number of new enhancements being made and therefore becomes a clear and relevant document to the staff when undertaking procurement activities. Would I be able to ask Greg just one little question with my bit? Greg, when we talk about local procurement, what do we consider the word local means? Does that mean we're wanting to get something that's within Indigo Shire, or does it mean Wodonga, or how far is local when we talk about local procurement?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. Through you, Madam Mayor. Local isn't defined in the policy as a particular geographic area, and that's because it has some subjectivity to it when you're doing procurement. So if you're talking about a very small example might be catering for a community meeting, then local would be in the same town. and that would be an appropriate locality. If you're talking about a new vehicle purchase, there just isn't a new vehicle supplier in Indigo Shire, and so local is this region. It's Northeast Victoria, Southern New South Wales. So that is local in that case. So there is a sliding scale of locality, and a bit like some of the other guidance that's in the procurement policy, it's a little vague, and it's then used by the staff to take those guiding principles when they do a procurement, that they're looking at what is local in this particular supply, what is appropriate from a sustainability perspective in this particular supply. So that's why it's not a defined area.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
Just a question for the CEO. With the procurement policy, which with every purchase, you've got to consider the climate change emergency, is that right?
That's yes, a tendering requirement is to give consideration. Yep.
And I noticed that in the budget, he talks about emission reduction plan. Just a question without notice, and I don't expect you to answer it tonight, but I'm just wondering how much that policy, climate change emergency policy, has cost the ratepayers of Indigo Shire. Whether it's considerable, we all know about the electric vehicles and other things, and the emission. Could you take that as a question on notice regarding the procurement policy?
It's a question that won't have an answer that's calculable, councillor. So I don't have a great answer right now. Electric vehicles you mentioned, again, we've bought 2 of those, and both of those had a lifetime cost that was comparable either way, so there was no cost there. Yeah, some of this stuff is directional but not calculable, so I don't have an answer that I think would satisfy right now, nor if I went away and got and reported back, would I actually have an answer that would be calculable. I think the reference is aspirational, and that we would give, when we line up 2 contracts side by side, we would always give consideration to the impacts on the environment, for example. And whether that costs more or not is probably not calculable in dollar terms. And in some cases, the more environmental friendly option may be the cheaper one. So I don't have a way of actually going back to the past and actually unraveling what that might be. So it'd be a theoretical answer. So I can take it on notice. I can't guarantee I'd come back with something that would be quantifiable.
Okay, so you'll quantify what you can, and the rest of it's directional.
So just a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
So it's
Councillor Goldsworthy. Yeah, sorry.
Aspirational, but it still comes at a cost, you would think, even in the current budget.
Oh, I can't say either way whether it comes at a cost or it doesn't. Okay. Some would assert it does. Some would say that the overall cost is, should take into account more environmental factors as well, not just dollars. Sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
Look, this is one councillor's request for a significant piece of work that, if it were to be done to the full extent, would be very timely to undertake, and a folly, and it certainly wouldn't consider the cost of not doing anything. So I'm totally opposed to asking the CEO to go away and do something on the request of one councillor.
It just seems that Councillor Goldsworthy doesn't want to know. After all, it was his motion.
Councillor Gaffney, I think CEO Areno said he wouldn't be able to fulfil your request anyway. So
I heard that. Thank you.
So we'll leave it at that. Any other comments to the motion of the procurement policy? Anyone else wish to? Yeah.
It does concern me that the derogatory comments of a particular councillor just spoke, and it's about time he addressed his behaviour.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Those comments from Councillor Goldsworthy completely unnecessary and degrading. But if he
Now,
wants
let's
to lower
just
himself, he can.
Okay. We're talking about the procurement policy. We're not going to descend into this. Sorry, we're not. So if you bring a point of order, you have to tell me under which point you're doing it. I don't want the councillors to be personally attacking each other in this meeting. So let's move on. We're dealing with the procurement policy.
I can tell you the section, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gaffney, you've made your point, and I have just said that that's it. There's no more discussion on this. So I would now like to go back to the motion, the procurement policy. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I'm going to put the motion. Oh, I see it, Councillor Shepherd. You want to sum up?
Yeah, I would. I'd just like to read what the objectives are. And sorry for taking this, but I thought it was going to just be a passing of this. But I think I should speak to it. Recognise and respond to Council's declaration of the climate emergency. Achieve value for money for ratepayers. Ensure open and fair competition. Ensure openness and transparency of the decision-making process. Achieve high standards of probity, accountability and risk management. Achieve compliance with legislation. Promote all aspects of sustainable procurement, financial, environment and community. Encourage local and social procurement. Progress Council's commitment to continuous improvement and collaboration. And to me, they are all high values that our community support and expect us to meet. So I'm happy to move this procurement policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Goldsworthy, your hand? I couldn't see it. Yep, that's 7 hands. Thanks, councillors. 10.5, the May Finance Report. So again, some more work from our Finance Manager, Phil Garoni, and during a very busy time. So the recommendation is that Council accept the year-to-date May Finance Report, noting the progress against Council's forecast. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Croucher, is that a yes?
Yes.
It is. Do I have a seconder? Is this going to lapse, the May Finance Report? I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Croucher, do you wish to speak to it?
Wow, you've got the most person that knows all about the finance. But when I read through these documents, I go through them closely. I figure out what I figure out is going along pretty well. And look, look at the bottom line. The financial position is still robust, despite all the problems with the pandemic, etc., etc. And that suits me fine.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Price, do you wish to add anything?
Just a question. On page 32, it talks about contract payments and employment costs, and it says that there's an unfavourable variance of 182,000 to assist with staff vacancies of 179. But then it talks about employee costs, a favourable variance of 500,000 due to some absences, impact of the pandemic and vacant positions. So how can that be explained as two similar things?
Director Pinkerton, please. What page?
Thank you for the question.
Sorry,
So
what page?
Page 32 at the top.
Thank you.
So during the year, there's absences in the staffing due to extended leave, illness, vacancies, those sorts of things. And that's a fairly common thing that we report each year. So what this is saying, the easiest way of reading this is that the employee costs, if you look at that first, has a large favourable, and it usually is several hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout the year. Not all of that, or not all of those vacancies need to be replaced. Some of them are just vacancies or annual leave and are covered by the team. So out of that $500,000 that has been saved due to vacancies, some of that flows through to the bottom line. Then if you go to the contract payment amount, what that's saying is that in some cases where there's a vacancy, we do bring contractors in to help fill those vacancies. And so $179,500 has been spent during the year to fill vacancies. So those two more or less offset each other, and providing that the amount spent in filling those vacancies doesn't exceed the saving in employee costs, then there's a net favourable result to council. The difference between the 182 and the 179 is just really highlighting that there's other sorts of contractor payments that we have that are not related to filling staff vacancies of approximately $3,000. So that's where the difference is between those two numbers.
Okay. You right with that, Councillor Price? Any further questions? No? Okay. Any other, anyone else wish to speak to the May Finance Report? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Seven hands. 10.6, planning permit application PP 210019 4 Old Warragee Road, Beechworth. The decision is that council approves this application for the development of land at Old Warragee 4 Old Warragee Road, Beechworth, for the construction of a carport and extension to a shed associated with the use of a warehouse, subject to the conditions included in attachment 3, and issues a notice of decision to approve a permit. Do I have someone to move this motion? Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yep. Unfortunately, this has been caught up in our delegations that request that if there's one objection that comes to council, it's a very minor build on this. I don't think it should be coming to council, and it's pretty basic. It's been built and it's obviously to standard and should be authorised.
Yeah, under delegation.
Yep.
Yeah, just to make a note that we've discussed this a bit. I think we're going to look at whether we can fix this up a bit so we don't get every single tiny thing coming to council just because it's in a farming zone, without losing sight of the ones that we do want oversight of. So we'll look into that. Councillor Price. Nothing. Okay, I'm going to put the motion. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. Do we approve the carport? We do. Unanimously. Thank you. 10.7. Planning permit application PP 200137 Reserve Road, Waganya. The recommendation is that council refuses this planning permit and issues a notice of decision to refuse for the development of the land at Reserve Road, Waganya, for the construction of a shed on the following grounds, and it lists a lot of them, but the main thing is that it is a flood risk that NECMA has said is an unacceptable structure. So do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price. Okay, Councillor Goldsworthy.
If you ask those that live below the Warragamba Dam in northern New South Wales, just on the outskirts of Sydney, about planning and putting buildings in floodways, they'd probably suggest that it's not a good idea, and the March flood in Sydney proved that. I'd say that if we were to approve this, then there would be a likelihood down the future that it would come back upon us, because we'd be putting a building or allowing a building in a flood zone.
Yeah.
They're there for a reason, and I think we should acknowledge that, let the waters flood and don't build there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Price.
Just to read from the report, North East Catchment Management Authority, acting in its capacity as the floodplain manager, has objected to the granting of this permit. As council officers have no delegation to issue a refusal, the matter is being reported to council for determination. The recommendation is that council refuse the application as the flood risk cannot be reduced to an acceptable level.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. So we're now with the Community and Economic Development Department. So Director Mark Flores, and some good news here, the Get Active Indigo grants. So we have a recommendation that council distributes $25,000 under the 2020-21 Indigo Shire Get Active Indigo grants programs as follows, and I won't go through them all, but there's 10 there, and some of them get up to $5,000. So between $300 and $5,000 in grants allocated there through these different applications. and the council moves the remaining $5,000, because it was actually $30,000 in this fund, to the 2021-22 Community Grants Program for a one-off sports stream to support the clubs to purchase equipment. And these are the ones that actually missed out in this round just because they weren't eligible under these criteria. So we're trying to help them out anyway by moving that $5,000 to another grant. Do I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Croucher. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Horn. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, well, I was on the committee for this one, and I was able to listen to all of these grants. And the main objectives, I'd just like to verify the objectives of this, is that to increase participation in exercise and sport, to fund a diverse range of different sports and trial just new projects, to increase the awareness of physical activity and to think differently about how to get active and to support clubs and committees. Now, all of the 10 submissions that we've got there were granted funds and they all fulfil those objectives very, very well indeed. But it must be stressed that was not a grant to supply actual equipment for a club unless it was part of the new innovation that they were doing or part of the activity. But just to supply equipment by itself was something that we had to really have a look at. So with this in mind, one of the group was not funded, but they were encouraged to reapply to the community grants program in the future. As our Mayor said, there was $5,000 left over from the Active Grants program, and this was recommended to be directed to the Community Grants program and also to offer the one that moved out to have another go at getting something from it. So that's the whole idea of the program.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Horn.
Yes, I think it's wonderful to see any assistance given to this sport. It's a wonderful sport and recreation, and yeah, I just commend to the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to it? Councillor Price.
Firstly, a question, and I've been a part of this process in the first round. So it's not in any way to undermine the panel, but just to check that our process for grants is remaining robust. Are we comfortable with the committee recommending that the $5,000 be set aside to be spent in another way? I just want to be clear that that's appropriate and reasonable for us to consider.
Yep. Who would like to answer that one? I think, yeah, Director Mark Florence.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Croucher summed it up pretty well, that there was consideration under the criteria of the Get Active Indigo grants, and they maintain the integrity of that criteria by not including one application, but also recognise that there was another grant that could support that in a more general way. So I'm comfortable that the criteria of the Active Indigo grants has been maintained and the integrity of that program has been maintained, and it creates an opportunity for a one-off additional pool to be supported through the community grants.
Councillor Price, any follow-up question?
No, I'm satisfied with that response. I just want to highlight this grant round came out of our Active Indigo strategy, and we had the first round in 2018-19, and as with all of our grants that we provide, it was massively oversubscribed, so much interest, and then unfortunately the second round was opened and due to close last year, and then COVID, so the round was cancelled, and I think it's a real sign of the times that we didn't even meet, we weren't even able to exhaust all of the funds available, because that's just not what generally happens in our community. Normally it's massively oversubscribed, and generally we don't want to end up in that position because we can't give people money, but it makes me look forward to being back in that position where everything's really bustling and there's lots of innovative things happening. People aren't just coping and making a way in life at the moment. So congratulations to this panel. I think it's a really good process to involve Sport North East and the Sport and Rec Victoria panel member as well as a councillor. It gives good representation. And good luck to all of these groups with their new ideas.
Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? So, Councillor Cratchit, do you want to sum up?
I just wanted to mention that the people that got the group, they were from young kids right through to older people. You'll notice that there is a fitness for senior exercise group, there are scout groups and all sorts of different groups that got the funding. And some of the innovative ideas that they had was fantastic. I was particularly impressed with the Chilton Tennis Club, who talked about using their tennis courts in the winter time when they often, all tennis courts lay idle, and now they're able to use them for exercise groups and all sorts of other different things. Very innovative. So that was really good. And I agree with you, Councillor Price. I think this should go on and on. I think when things calm down a little bit better, we should get a lot of people more interested in it.
Yeah. So yeah, some very exciting projects there. So I'll put the vote. All those in favour. And that's 7 councillors. Thank you. All right, so we're now going to some late business that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and the council agreed to consider it. So this is the Yakandanda Connectivity Part A tender recommendation. So the recommendation is that the council authorises the CEO financial delegation to award the contract route through Yakandanda Part A to an amount not exceeding 524,000, excluding DSC, sorry. Authorises the CEO to sign the contract documents and authorises the CEO financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. And the reason this is coming is because it exceeds the delegation currently that the CEO has. So, do I have someone to move this? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Price, Councillor Goldsworthy.
The delay in approving this tender will put the project back a month longer than it needs to be. We're looking at this stage to have it completed, from what I understand, early parts of next year. Given the wet weather that we will experience over the coming months, there's already a risk of delays. So allowing the CEO to approve this project through the tender process, it'll keep it on track, hopefully.
Thank you. Councillor Price?
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate why this has been brought as late business, so that we can meet the funding agreement milestone requirements and to avoid delay. So that's good.
Right. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney?
I thought the completion date was in 2021. Has that been pushed out now to 2022?
Maybe, can you answer that one, Acting Director McLaughlin, or maybe CEO?
I was actually going to push to Paul. It's not his project
Paul,
directly, but he may well know the answer.
May not, otherwise take it on notice and send out the info, yeah.
I might take it on notice and confirm. My understanding is March 2022, but I'll confirm in writing.
Okay, thanks. All right, you happy with that, Councillor? Great. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All right, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? And there's 7 hands. Thanks, councillors. Item 12.1 is the Public Highway Declaration of Gorge Road, Beechworth. This is, the recommendation is that council declares the land that's described under different lot names as a public highway, subject to any objections being received as part of the public submission process. Gives public notice of the proposed public highway declaration, stating that persons have a right to make a submission within 28 days. Should no objections be received, also authorise the CEO to enact the declaration by notice in the Government Gazette, and notes that if any objections are received, it must consider those submissions and that a further report will be presented to a future council meeting for a final decision. Do I have someone to move that? I've got Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Goldsworthy. Councillor Shepherd.
I love these old titles where that it's a section of that small strip of land is still historically owned by William Barnard, 1863. So, yeah, so it's just been sitting there. It's been used as a road. It's been used as the Gorge Road. We need to get our act together and consolidate that back into the road so that the person can subdivide their land in front of it. So, yeah, interesting reading. That, and I'm sure this is all over the Shire. Little bits of titles of owned by people. Where are they now? Yeah, this is a consolidation into our declaring the land as a public highway.
Okay, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Oh, it's just another step in the process to right an old wrong.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to it? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Unanimous. And just to reassure people, we're talking about a very, very small bit of land that sits at the bottom of someone's block. We're not talking about the whole Gorge Road by any means. So you can see it in the agenda if you want to have a look. And then 12.2 is the naming of the road off Albert Road in Beechworth. So the recommendation is that council endorses Winning Court as the proposed name for the new road off Albert Road in Beechworth as shown on the maps, and places a public advertisement for the proposed name for the purposes of community consultation, and notes that a further report will be presented to council to make a final decision following this process, the consultation process. Do I have someone to move this? I've got a councillor, I'm going to go Councillor Goldsworthy and then Councillor Shepherd. And then Councillor Croucher, you might want to speak to it. Councillor Goldsworthy.
So this will go back out to the community for some consultation, but it's a great process that's been undertaken. Originally, there was some talk about potentially putting it down as the name of our former Superintendent Burke, but it's now we've thrown up the name of Winning. So and it's a great story, and talk about her contribution to the local community. She moved to Beechworth at 35 and she ended up being the local matron, and she trained a number of nurses. And I thank the submission that was made to actually give us this. She's made quite the contribution, and I think it's about time we start to honour some of our women from our past. So this is a good step towards it.
Thanks, Councillor Goldsworthy. Councillor Shepherd.
I thank the great women at the Stanley Athenaeum who got all up in arms about Burke yet again having his name on something, and put in great submissions of names. Internet of women pioneers throughout Beechworth and Stanley, and of course they have a book, Women of Gold. I'm really bad with names, but they've got a great book that they've written of the
gold, mines of metal.
Thank you. Of the women of Stanley, and there's so many amazing women from around this region who, of course, we don't know their stories at all, and it's great to have at least one of them as a street name. So thank you, Stanley Athenaeum, for getting on your high horse about that one.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Croucher.
Yes, as a past tennis player, I think it's just wonderful to have something to remind you of where the Beechworth tennis courts were, because that's where it is. It's going to be. So that's where the old tennis courts were. And what more apt name could you have than Winning? And I read both articles, and anybody could have that name. Anybody who was in the past, but I just think she seemed to me to be a great community person, and I certainly endorse that name as the road, or any other name. But I think of the old Beechworth courts where I played many a good set of tennis on, and I think that would be really good to have a name of one of the courts and streets that are around there, as in Winning Court. That was a lot of blathering, wasn't it, really, I guess? But I think you got the message.
Councillor Gaffney, do you want to say something?
I was just going to ask Councillor Croucher whether he still played tennis.
No, the bowler now, Councillor Gaffney.
Gaffney, that's not relevant.
He's
Anyone
got a
else wish to speak to this motion? Double standards or what? Okay, anyone else wish to speak to this motion?
Yeah, I just make the point that given how great this story is, if in the future we do actually adopt this as the name, then I think a storyboard would be totally appropriate. It'd be great to have the story there rather than just the
Excellent
name. But anyway,
fine.
Excellent idea.
Okay, well, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? That's everyone. Thanks, councillors. And just to make the point that this is a recommended name, it's going out for consultation. I know there's others that have ideas about other names who may think this is okay. We'll wait to hear back from you before we make a final decision. 12.3 is the May Capital Works report. So the recommendation is that council notes the May Capital Works report and the year-to-date achievements in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Notes the additional $4,000 in income and expenditure on library books funded by the Libraries Grant, and notes the reduced developer contribution income of $20,000 for Barnard Street, Beechworth, because it was previously received in the 2019-20 budget year. So, do I have someone to move this? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Price. Councillor Goldsworthy.
I note that in the main financial reports, it did actually say that the completion rate for our capital works is down to 75.4%, which is year-to-date actuals a bit over $8 million, which is a higher spend than the comparative time last year, but a lower percentage. And there's been a very good explanation provided in the capital works report as to why that's the case. And so I thank the acting director for infrastructure and his staff for providing that explanation. This gives me some surety that we will still be aiming for a high completion rate, albeit with only days left for the final invoices to get in, no doubt. But I doubt we'll make the 90 to 95% completion given the explanation that's been provided. But hopefully next year we'll have sunnier weather and we can get more done.
Okay, all right, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Price. Oh, you don't want to speak to it? Anyone else wish to speak to the May Capital Works report? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Accepted by 7 councillors. Thanks. All right, so now we've dealt with 13.1 and 13.2. So now we are up to 13.3, councillors. So if you go to page 30, I think, no, that's not right. 30 on my run sheet. It's page 81. No, page, oh God, sorry. Page 90.
Page 98 on mine.
Page 98. All right, I'm not going to say any page numbers. It's 13.3. You'll have to find it on your own agendas. I think we've got different layouts. All right, so this is the appointment of the internal audit services, the recommendation. The recommendation is that council appoints AFS and Associates as internal auditors for a period of 3 years for the contract price as outlined, with the option of additional audits to be conducted, subject to approval of the internal audit program. Authorises the CEO to sign the documents and the contract documents, and authorises the CEO financial delegation to approve the contract variations of 10% of the final contract value. So do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Look, we did cover the conversation in regards to this in the briefing. From what I understand, it's the desire of the Audit and Risk Committee to have these as the internal auditors for the time being, at very least, given some continuity to the process and some of the changes that have taken place. So for that reason, I'm supportive of the recommendation that is now our motion. Thank
you. Councillor Shepherd? You're shaking your head. It's hard to see you. Sorry. You might need to speak. I think you're frozen on camera. Do you wish to speak as a seconder, Councillor Shepherd? No. Okay, thanks. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Gaffney.
AFS have been the internal auditors for the last 4 years. I don't know where continuity really becomes involved in this. I'm not against the recommendation, but I believe, and I've got to be careful because there's confidential matters involved, but perhaps there's another set of auditors who may have more experience and have worked at higher levels. The evaluation panel comprised of the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee and 3 council officers from Indigo Shire Council. And they recommended AFS, and the committee agreed. The 2 councillors who were on it, which I'm one, we didn't vote because we thought it might have been double dipping. But I have concerns about this recommendation and the motion put by Councillor Goldsworthy.
Okay.
Particularly regarding the reason being continuity. I can't see where that's a factor regarding the appointment of an auditor.
Sorry, I'm confused by that because you just said they were the auditors for the last 4 years. So that's
yes,
continuity, isn't it? That they'd be the next what?
But I can't see what continuity has got to do with it. So therefore, we've had the same auditors for 8 years. I just think a bit of fresh blood and a new look would be benefit to the ratepayers of Indigo Shire Council, not continuity.
Not continuity. All right. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
I did ask the question earlier in briefing today, just whether it was appropriate that this should have been in open council and whether, given the sensitivity of talking about a group that we work with, that perhaps this could have been considered in confidential. I'm satisfied that it doesn't need to be, but it does constrain the conversation a bit. Given I'm a member of the audit committee and have been very pleased with the work that AFS have brought to us at the audit committee and the way they've engaged with council and council staff in particular. But I do just wonder, on that same point of continuity that Councillor Gaffney raised, that whether that's been one of the main factors in this tender panel consideration, because there is comment within the report that the risk of moving to another provider at the current time after only 1 term outweighs any benefit which may arise from moving to a different provider. So I have some concern with the process, which I have shared with relevant staff, but that doesn't mean that I'm dissatisfied with the outcome. I think that the appointment of AFS is a good one, and I think we work really well with them, and they certainly provide us with very sound audits. And that's informed a lot of council advice, a lot of advice to council, and a lot of council strategy. So with some concerns, I'm happy to adopt this motion.
Thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? I'll come back to Councillor. Oh, Councillor Shepherd. Did you reserve your right before?
Sorry, my sound and my internet is quite poor.
Okay.
So so I just, of course I second that motion. I'm trying to fix up my sound, but I'm having difficulty. But look, I've looked at the process, and the process looks sound. The audit committee has voted, as far as I can see from what I've been told. So I support this motion, and I think if the councillors have concerns about the process for the future, then perhaps we need to look at the process for the next audit auditor choice. But for the moment, this process looks solid.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak before Councillor Goldsworthy sums up? Back to you, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yes, like Councillor Price, I'll take the opportunity to read a little bit from the report. AFS and Associates provides continuity as the new Local Government Act is implemented and the new management structure is bedded down with the new risk coordinator and significant work progressing on the risk policy, risk framework and outstanding audit items. So it is an issue around continuity, and if fresh blood is needed, maybe we need to look at the representation that's on the committee.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? No, that's it. Okay, thank you for summing up. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And anyone against? Okay, so in favour, we've got hands up. Councillor Horn, Goldsworthy, Shepherd, Price, Croucher, O'Connor. And against, Councillor Gaffney. Okay, got that, Jane? Wherever you are, there you are. Sorry, everyone's moving around tonight. Thank you. All right, so 13.4, changes under the Environment Protection Act 2018. So the recommendation, you have to find it. The recommendation is that the report and instrument relating to the Implementation of the Environmental Protection Act be tabled. And then this is about the delegations, the exercising the power under the Act. The instrument of delegation resolves that there be delegated to the members of council staff holding, acting or performing the duties of positions referred to in the attached instrument of subdelegation to council staff, powers, duties and functions set out in that instrument. It comes into force from 1st of July 2021 and must be carried out in accordance with the instrument of direction of the EPA dated 4th of June 2021, etc. Do I have someone to move that? Thanks, Councillor Goldsworthy. Seconder? Councillor Price. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Goldsworthy? Yes, this came to us as a quite a late item, due primarily to going through the authorisation process and getting legal advice. We finally got that advice, and what we do know is that we need people staff to represent us to enforce the Environmental Protection Act. And at the moment, listed 8 of the staff to do that. It comes into effect tomorrow, on the 1st. And so we need to get this done today, because there'll be little other opportunity to make it done without a break in our ability to enforce this. And obviously, when it comes up for our delegations to be reconsidered, it seems to make good sense that the CEO be able to delegate who an enforcement officer should be and not require full council authorisation. Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Price, do you wish to speak to it? No, any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? And that's 7 hands. Thanks, councillors. 13.5 is there was a request for contracts that had been awarded under CEO delegation to be reported on, and that report is in the agenda. So are there any questions for the CEO from that report? Really for information, there's no decision to be made. All right, so thank you, that's for information. 13.6, informal meetings of council's record. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meeting of councillors' records. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Gaffney, do I have a seconder? Go Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Gaffney, you wish to speak to it? No. Councillor Shepherd? Anyone? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thanks, councillor. 13.7, advisory committee minutes. So the recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed advisory committee minutes and endorses the officer comments. Anyone to move that, please? Councillor Croucher. Councillor Price, seconder. Councillor Cratcher?
No, I don't have anything much to say about them, but thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Price, anything? Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. So we now move to item 14, notices of motion. There's no notices tonight. Councillors' reports. There's the Mayor's Diary for May, which feels like a very long time ago, I have to say. Any questions on that, on any of the items there, please feel free to ask me. Are there any other councillor reports? Yeah, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Oh, I just wanted to point out that in your diary is you attended the Ida Hobbit Day photo, as did a number of councillors, and there was the morning tea there. Not sure if you actually made it to the morning tea, but anyway, it was. I just want to say the importance of acknowledging our diverse community and supporting them.
And actually, I think the young people that were there representing their community were so absolutely thrilled to see such a large number of our staff there. You know, most of them older people getting out to support our diverse community, and it was fantastic. And I know all councillors did want to be there, and most of them were able to get there. So we had some good photos, and again, I think it is really wonderful to see the support from council, and it meant a lot to them. I got emails later, and it was great. So thanks, and thanks, Mark. I think you organised that, or your crew organised that. So thank you to them. All right. So the decision. Oh, any other councillor reports? Yeah, Councillor Shepherd.
I just wanted you to speak to the fact that we're now all our electricity is 100% renewable, and you went down to the to that launch.
Yeah, that was amazing. So I think it's 39 councils have banded together, or maybe it's 40. I can't remember the exact number. I should have banded together. Is it 40? 41?
49, isn't it?
Oh, 49 maybe.
I'd say it's about 46 roughly.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
I'll go 50.
Yeah,
anyone higher?
Well, hopefully more. But they've banded together to actually procure renewable energy to buy for us to be using renewable energy for our shire. And we could never have afforded to do that on our own. So it was a really fantastic collaboration. And I was very proud when I was there, because there were 3 shires that were named out of all of the 3 as kind of showcase shires, and we were one of them, and Geelong was another one, and Darebin was another. So yeah, I think the fact that a small rural shire, once again, I think Indigo punches above our weight. Thanks very much to our community who have driven this, and the Greenhouse Alliance that have supported it, and you know, and the work of our environment officers at Indigo who have really worked hard on this, particularly Jill, who's no longer working for us, but she did a fantastic job. So you know, one of those moments of great pride to be able to say we're seen as leaders in this field. Even though we're small, we have small resources, a small staff team. We have a big community that works really hard on this. So thank you to everyone, and it was great. So is that enough, Councillor Shepherd? Thank you. And I know I want to thank you, because you've been driving this in your representation at the Greenhouse Alliance, very much representing us so well. So thank you for your work on this as well. Anything else from the diary? That's enough. Stop now. I didn't mean it when I said you could ask me anything. Any other councillor reports? I will say, even though people aren't speaking tonight, I know that our councillors have been really busy, particularly in the engagement around the submissions for the council plan and the budget. So thank you all for the really big effort that you all make to be part of that process. Decisions register, that's there. Have we got any general business tonight? Councillor Price.
I just have some questions in relation to the availability of residential land in Chilton. I was speaking with the principal of one of the primary schools about enrolments and about the fact that we've provided some really good infrastructure in terms of childcare and lots of the placemaking outcomes. and we were discussing the availability of blocks of land for young families to build on. So questions to Director Pinkerton, if I can. When was the most recent release of residential blocks of land in Chilton?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Mayor, there hasn't been a significant release or rezoning, I should say, of land going back to the current planning scheme, which was created in the late 90s. So for quite a while, there hasn't been a large amount done. There has been some small subdivisions done, but really just some infill, 2 or 3 lots, nothing major.
Is there any residential land available for development in Chilton at the moment?
I believe that there are some, but again, not in large lots, not an estate as such, but just 1 or 2 lots that are there to be developed.
And my third question, when will land be rezoned to allow for the development of more residential blocks?
Yeah, so as part of the Chilton placemaking and structure plan, there was a piece of land on the northern edge of town, I believe next to the school, that was identified as a rezoning to, I have it here, general residential zone. So that hasn't gone through the process yet, but that would provide some stock, but it's not a large piece of land, so that's only an interim measure. So that's in the shorter to medium term. Longer term, there's in the council plan that was adopted tonight, there's reference made to a residential housing strategy across the Shire, so not just Chilton, but across the Shire, to look at residential land stock over that 15 to 20 year time period. So that's a project that is scheduled, I think it was scheduled originally for the following financial year, so not the one we're about to start, but the following one. Given the demand that we've seen in recent times for housing and land, we're expecting to bring that forward a little bit, so we get a bit of a head start on that, because we know the demand is quite high. So don't know what the outcome of that will be, and particularly for Chilton, but that is certainly the place where this will be looked at by council.
Thanks. And I suppose just understanding all of that, I think it's disappointing for that particular town, because they're not poised and ready to capitalise on this building boom that we're seeing happen at the moment. I think that just about all of our other towns have residential land available, or have had it recently available, and I think that leaves Chilton lagging behind in that way. I acknowledge that they have benefited from so much in terms of placemaking, in terms of the town infrastructure and community, but we still need to be actively planning for a bigger population for that town, and areas for young families and other people to build. So I just raised that for discussion for councillors, just for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor. I might just add to that the whole issue of lack of housing in rural communities is a massive one now. As you rightly say, there's building boom and everyone's wanting to get the hell out of the city, really, and come and live in the country. So we raised this issue with Helen Haynes. She's advocating at a federal government level, and Rural Councils Victoria is also about to do a big piece of work around how do we improve housing stock in rural areas without destroying the very reason people come and live here. So that's part of it. And so there's some big pieces of work going on that hopefully will help exactly the issue you're raising for Chilton in particular, but right across the region really. So thanks for raising that. Any other general business? No. Okay. So we're going to go in confidential, which means once we've decided this item, we are going into confidential because we are looking at appointing new members to the Indigo Community Access Committee, and there's personal information about these people. So we do it in confidential, then we contact them and tell them, and then it becomes public. So we need to do that in confidential. so before I see if we can move into confidential, I will just say to anyone watching this meeting that that will be the last item we deal with tonight, and the next meeting's on the 27th of July. So for anyone that has stuck it out and watched it for this long, thank you very much, and we'll see you in July. And at this point, I would like to ask that someone recommends that we move into confidential. Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Price. All those in favour? Thank you very much. All right, so we'll go into confidential. And actually, I'm just looking at this. It looks like we can actually close the meeting and then consider confidential. Is that correct, Jane? Close the meeting to the public, I mean. Cease the live streaming. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll just cease the live streaming, and then so I'm closing the meeting to the public, then we'll consider confidential. Thanks, Jane. I didn't read that very well. Did we join it?
Councillors, just to let you know, Zoom's taking a little bit of time to assign you to a room, so I'm just working on that now. I'll have you in that room very shortly.